Welcome to Retirementals, a podcast that dives headfirst into the issues facing the financial sector at the intersection of investment, technology, and financial advice. Hosted by Abraham Okusanya, you can expect raw honesty, critical analysis, and energetic interviews. Here is your host, Abraham Okusanya.
Hello and welcome to Retirementals. I'm Abraham Okusanya and great to be on the podcast today. And oh boy, we have a packed show and discussion today. My guest today will be known to many of you, if not all. Brett Davidson is the founder and CEO of FP Advance. He's a top 50 most influential people in financial planning in the UK, according to FT Advisor. He's a prolific writer, speaker, and an advisor to financial advisor. Brett, welcome to Retirementals.
Yeah, great to be here, Abraham. Thanks for having me on.
So you've just published a fantastic paper titled "What's Next for Financial Planning in the UK," and we're gonna dive into that. But I want to grab a few quotes, from the paper before we go on. You open the paper by saying, "I am worried that with the pace of technological change, that our cushy, beautiful business model might get disrupted before it's ever achieved the height that we all want to see it hit." Powerful stuff. Give us a background to, why you wrote the paper.
Yeah, look, I've been, in my role as someone who's working with loads of different firms. I'm talking to lots of people. I've been getting over to conferences in the US, and I'm just trying to always be thinking like, what's coming down the pipe now. Most of the time the answer is I haven't got a clue. Like everyone else, we're all doing our best. But I dived into. I was familiar with the Innovator's Dilemma, Clayton Christensen's work. I like every book I read, I look at when it was written. It was written in the late 90s. I'm going, like, as usual, I'm really late to the party on this, but it's still a great idea. But I've been flirting with this one for 5 years, and this paper really is just, I felt it was the right time to get this out into the main market. I've been talking with some of the top firms about this idea for a little while. Just as you do, you bounce these things around and they start to take shape in your head. But I wanted to get it down in a coherent and accessible way for all financial planning business owners, because I'm really starting to see that some of the things I was, concerned about or worried about starting to take shape in the marketplace. And I don't want financial planners who I love to be the last to get to know this stuff and to be thinking about these issues. I don't think we're facing a cliff edge next Thursday, but I really do think, the sooner we can be thinking about what's coming next and how might we respond, the better. And the example, Abraham, I use is when I got here in 2004 from Australia. Financial planners were a relatively small community in the IFP, and they were doing this new thing called financial planning, and everyone thought they were nuts, right? Why are you doing that? Well, you don't need to do that. And they did it early, and it set them up for the last 20 years of success. And I would like the people who are still going and want to continue to go to be doing the same thing. Yeah, it's going to feel a bit nuts. It's going to feel a bit crazy, but we've got to be starting to ask ourselves some challenging questions. That's why I wrote the paper.
It's a powerful paper, and coincidentally, I've been thinking a lot about, the direction of travel in terms of the IFA world. I bought Christensen's book a few days before yours landed. I hadn't read it. I still haven't read through it, and I saw your paper, and it was so powerful. I guess let's break this down a little bit. So you cited, that book, the Innovator's Dilemma, and you cited an example of Toyota, for instance. Give us the sort of the high level view of, how does disruption take place in an industry?
Yeah, so let me try and not use Toyota as the example because it's in the paper and people can read it. And I think when I use the car industry, people are going, oh yeah, but that's the car industry and it took 50 years. I don't want people to go, well, it's going to take 50 years for us. We're in a completely different space. It could take 3, right? So we have to be really careful about that. But I think of Christensen famously went and did a presentation to Andy Grove and the team at Intel. And he wrote an article about it. And he gets there, he's flown in. They've paid him probably a fortune to be there because he's this famous guy. And then they say, sorry, old mate, we're running over time. And they say, look, you've got 20 minutes. And he says to himself, like, what do I do? If I just tell them what I know, nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to change. So he stuck to his guns and really went through his presentation, which was posing a lot of questions. They were trying to tap the watch going, hurry up, mate, like you got 20 minutes, we got shit to do. But apparently it really landed with Andy Grove and his team. And they made the decision then to go back down market in the chip market, make a basic chip and work their way back up. That's how they became number 1, Intel, as a chip maker. And this is, I guess, the innovator's dilemma, that it makes no sense. Right. And when I'm talking to advisors going, hey, I know your financial planning business is killing it. You own the space with retired clients who've got all the money. I'll tell you what, give that up and go and work with people who've got no money and are actually not interested in financial planning. Do that. That'll be great. And they're all looking at me, what are you talking about? This is the whole point. It doesn't make any sense. And yet, if we don't do that, if we don't disrupt ourselves, someone else, there's plenty of people lining up to come in and do that. And this was the scary stat when you read the book. In the industries, the companies, the industries that got disrupted, the last 3 years of their existence were their most profitable ever. Right? So they didn't go out of business in slow decline, seeing it coming 20 years in advance. They were at their peak on fire, and all of a sudden the exponential nature of disruption just catches up with them and they're in trouble. So you know, that's why I want people to read the paper. Okay, I think lots of people have come to the conversations with me not having read the paper because they're asking me sort of questions that say, I haven't made that connection, but go and read the book. It's 3 hours in the bath, right? You'd be wrinkly at the end, but you can knock it over in 3 or 4 hours. It's not a long read, but it just takes you through then the whole raison d'etre of how we got there and the studies he did and how he's seen it apply across different industries.
It would be easier, by the way, if there's an audio version of that book. I can't find it anywhere. So if anyone can, that would be really helpful. So the point you made in the book is that, financial planning, we serve, top 5, maybe 10% of wealth in this country. So we ignore 90% of people, and that the way innovation happens is that inferior products, cheap, lower cost products, come in and they start essentially, addressing and serving that market that is neglected and forgotten by, but that's been forgotten by our profession. And you cited robo-advice as an example of that. But many advisors will probably be sitting here thinking, well, robo-advice has now been around for 10 years. In the US where they're more prominent, they haven't, displaced financial advice meaningfully. So, Brett, what are you talking about? What is this threat? Is there anything that we can see, potentially that is a serious threat to the business model right now?
Yeah, so I'm loath to name some of those things because I've got no more insight than you. If I knew what was going to happen, I'd tell you, and then we could all react appropriately. But it's not quite that straightforward. But I sort of wish I hadn't mentioned robo advice in the paper because I think the consensus is in the US and probably here that pure robo isn't going to be that disruption. Okay, now we might be wrong. Maybe there's more to run. But what I am seeing is what people here are calling hybrid advice. a mix of human and robo. In the US, Bob Veris calls it cyborg advice. Okay, and that exists already over there. That's a mature model. I think that's the future. And if you look at the big brands who've bought tech companies in the last 12 months, there's a list every month. Rob Kingsbury, who hosted our launch of this paper, listed for me all the purchases that have gone on. The big brands are making moves into this space. Only on Saturday in the FT Money section, I saw Andy Bell from AJ Bell saying that they're building an app and an offering for this millennial Gen Z group. It's going to disrupt their own existing trading platform, which costs money. The analysts on the call said apparently their share price dropped 8% after he announced all this, because the analysts are going, Andy, you're going to cannibalize your own business. And he said, better that we disrupt ourselves than someone else. The analysts are wrong. He's right, in my opinion. And but this is the common mistake, isn't it? Everyone goes, oh, don't do that. That's going to disrupt what you're doing. Go, well, yeah, that's the whole point. If I don't do it, someone else is coming to do that. So yeah, that's the message I'm trying to get across.
This is interesting, and I guess the point you're making is to say it is lazy thinking, in my view, to assume that just because robo-advice in the first version, call it version 1.0, hasn't disrupted financial planning meaningfully, then it can't do that. That's the whole essence of innovation or disruption, that the people who are involved, right, they can't see what is the thing they say, you can't see the outside of a tin you're in, right? The people who are in the industry, they disregard and they write off this innovation. And what I see though is the likes of Vanguard taking Robo 1.0, taking that technology and then building what you might call version 2.0, where they put they put technology at the center of what they do, and they hire CFPs, and they open offices, up and down the country. They're doing that in the US, less so in the UK. Could that be the disruption that we're talking about, for financial planning?
Yeah, I think certainly it could be. I mean, when we rattle off the other brands and the tech companies they've bought, one, I don't know any of the tech companies. Maybe you do because you're more in the space, but the average advisor is going to go, oh, I've never heard of any of these small tech plays they've bought. But when I hear Vanguard is getting into this space and doing that, yeah, like a slight chill goes down my spine. They're a credible player who've already disrupted one industry. And are completely customer focused and can deliver this at scale for so cheap it's not real. And so yeah, I don't know how as an advisor owner I could sit there and think that this might not be a threat. Like, I don't know if they will succeed. Maybe they'll just carve out a space and we'll all be as happy as Larry coexisting in 20 years. It's possible, but I couldn't let myself sit there and think that thought. If that thought came into my head, I'm going to banish it in a jiffy. As a business owner, I can't think like that. Yeah, it's just mad.
So a lot of financial planning businesses are, small, independent lifestyle businesses. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. That's a brilliant, beautiful thing. And, you can make a decent living, you can turn over £500,000, be on the top of your profession with 2-3 people within the business. I guess the question is, what should we be doing differently than we're doing right now? We haven't got millions of money to buy robo or disruptive technology. What should we be doing to defend or expand the business that we currently have?
Yeah, so I think the answer to this, Abraham, is really nuanced, and I cover this in the paper. I just think there are three different strategies. If you're a small lifestyle firm and that's what you want to stay as, and you're happy doing that, I think that's great. I don't think there's really anything to see here. Like small businesses, like small accountants still exist, small lawyers still exist. Uh, the small space is fine. The big space is fine. It's the middle space that gets difficult. Now, I'm thinking then there's a lot of advisors. Though. I think in the lifestyle camp, I'll split them into two. There's people who are a lifestyle business by choice, okay, and there are people like that, and bless them, that's great. There's lifestyle businesses who I say I'm a lifestyle business. What they really mean is I'm stuck and I don't know how to get any further. And, I often end up working with a lot of those to get them unstuck and move them on. Now, if we go from 500,000 to 1 million, you get to 1 million, you're not stopping at 1 million. You'll probably be on to 2 and 3 million and eventually 4 and 5 million of revenue. Now you're starting to get into that more difficult space. And so I split my advice in there in the strategies that you could pursue. Small firms who are just discovering financial planning or getting their business right, that's all you should focus on. You don't need to worry about this for now. You can come and read this again in 4 years' time when you've got your things moving on. But it's the bigger firms. I'm thinking here, firms that are 2.5, 3 million plus, and we know plenty of these good people. I think they need to be making some moves and starting to think about how do we go back down market? How do we work with this next generation? It's a completely different model. The model we've built for financial planning for at retirement is great, but doesn't work for the Gen Z or millennial generations particularly. And we've got to think differently. It's going to be, I think, a hybrid model, a blend of tech and human. I'm already talking to some advisors who are making some moves in those spaces, but it's early days here, I think. And look, I'm not well connected here. There might be people listening going, Brett, we've been doing that for 5 years. Mate, ring me and let's have a chat. But I don't know everyone that's doing it, but I am talking to some players that I've known who are starting to think, we're going to make some moves in that space. And I think you have to if you want to be relevant in 10, 15, 20 years' time.
Now, a word from our sponsor. Nikki Heaton-Jones is the Managing Director and the Chief Investment Officer at Betafolio, the high-tech, low-cost, discretionary model portfolio manager. Typical model portfolio service costs about 36 basis points. That's in addition to the funds, the platform, the advice fees. Tell us a bit about Betafolio's view and approach on fees.
Well, I don't think anyone that knows us already, Abraham, would be surprised to hear me say that in a nutshell, MPS fees are too high. If you include the fund charges and the platform fee that you already talked about, we get close to 1%, I think, on average for a lot of retail clients. And that's before they start paying for the financial plan, which is the part of the service that will ultimately add the most value for them in their advisor relationship and experience. My view on fees and Betafolio's view on fees is that they have a real impact on client outcomes that need attention. And that's why we're building a scalable solution with technology that will allow us to keep costs low. And I think we also should consider the impact of these fees on advisors' businesses too. Advisors need to make a profit from their work. They need to have a viable business, and their cost bases have been rising because of regulation, and the more cost they have to pass through to their clients for overcomplicated services in turn puts pressure on the advisor's own fees and ultimately makes it not possible for them to run a good business. So fees are really crucial, and I'm really happy that we're in a position to be having a positive influence on the trends in the market.
Good stuff. Thank you, Nikki. So you've worked with a lot of successful financial planning businesses. How would you sum up, what it takes for firms to go from, a couple of 100,000 to a million? What is it that distinguish firms who make this leap from those that don't?
Yeah, it's again, I guess there's a bit to it, but I'm going to sum it up. It's about learning some business management skills. Okay, and we're talking basics here. This is stuff any business owner can learn. It's not complicated. Do we have a meeting flow? Are we annual planning, quarterly goal setting, checking in, weekly meetings to solve problems, simple stuff? Are we able to build a team around us? Building your team is the number one thing you're going to have to get right if you're going to go from 200 to a million. It's the number one thing you're going to have to get right if you want to be a great lifestyle business. Okay, you can't not have a team and be a lifestyle business. There is no lifestyle if you're doing it all yourself. So getting your team right is the key core skill for absolutely all of us. And I know at FP Advanced at the moment, we're blessed with a magnificent team, best I've ever worked with. And, at the moment, life's really great. I've been through the phases where it wasn't that, or you've got a wrong person or two on board. And it's like trying to run with a truck tire tied around your waist. You may as well just stand still till you cut the truck tire off, which is sort out your team, and then you can sprint, right? It's like a new lease on life. So that's the key for growth. Now, once you've got to a million, the key to get to 2 and 3 and 5 and 10 is also people. Like it's also building, team, process, and tech. It's that right blend, but people are going to be at the heart of that. We're still a people business.
So I'm going to go down the rabbit hole. Someone who's, say, turning over £250,000, they have one admin or paraplanner who works with them. What do they need to be thinking about in terms of the team, right? Who's the next in that level? And, take us through that journey to when you get to a million, who will be the sort of the core, 5-6 people that you need within the business to do that?
Yeah, so I think the first question before all that is, what do I want to be? What do I want this business to be? Because again, if you just want to get to 400,000 and stop, that looks very different to if I want to go to a million and then beyond that, I want to hit £1 million with a great structure in place so I can carry on, which is absolutely doable. But I think look, early on in that under $500,000, you got to get good administrators, paraplanners, whatever in place. They can be outsourced today. I've got quite a few businesses who are at 5, 6, 700,000 with an outsourced team. Our team is outsourced at FP Advanced, including our operations manager. So that works just fine. But it's getting those admin and paraplanning support in place so that you can focus on the high value, which is really rainmaking and seeing clients. At some point, if we're looking to build a bigger business and keep going, at some point relatively early in that journey, way earlier than people think, you need a practice manager. You need someone who's going to be the business manager so you can be the strategist, the rainmaker, and the main advisor for quite a long time. And they will then be able to take on recruitment, HR, IT, compliance, marketing, all those things. They don't have to be experts in that stuff, but they're going to be the person that project manages those things for you with a bit of your input, obviously because it's your business along the way. But getting that, the key hire on that journey is the practice management hire.
Yeah, no, I think you make an important point about the outsourcing side of things. One of the things we see is firms, who are very small, and they do too much, right? In terms of there's the reports and paraplanning, there's the investment management, it's a lot for a small firm to do. So, outsourcing, or indeed, if you want to build a team internally around it is important. One of the things that I was having a conversation with Tina Weeks recently. One of the things that's been on my mind is this thing that financial planning just doesn't scale very well. So again, correct my ignorance. There are many 10 million plus type financial planning firms out there. Do you have a view on why, first of all, before I go to my next question? Why? I mean, why?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna. I don't even know if this is true. My gut feel is because we're still pretty early in the move to being a profession, like accounting and law are old. They've sort of
Right.
cracked a lot out. Now, there's no reason why we couldn't be copying that. You know, I look at big consulting firms like McKinsey or whatever. You know, they've scaled a people business and an intellectual property business. I don't think there's any reason why they can't scale. Um, you know, I think players like, you know, your Paradigm Nortons, your Carbons, your Cooper Parrys, you know, they're well down the path and have the management capability to continue to push on. And maybe another 10 years, they go from 10 to 35 million or 50 million. I don't know what's possible for them or what their ambition is, but I think it's absolutely, I do believe it's possible. And with the world changing and tech allowing us to leverage the human, you know, maybe it's becoming even more possible, but we're still early in that development. So I'm in the optimistic camp that there's no reason why this couldn't be done, but I accept we haven't really seen it done particularly well, I don't think, so far.
So then we have all these sort of large, you alluded to earlier on, managers, coming into financial planning. And one of the things I see done, for instance, is that they push down the cost of advice so their vertically integrated model, they push down the cost of advice to something like, say, 50 basis points. They keep the platform whereabouts it's currently, and then the investment management is so big. And I'm looking at them thinking, all right, the total cost will add up to say 2%, but advice is only 50 basis point. And I'm thinking to my head, think of a potential client, all right, who looks at that and says, well, Schroeder charges, I think it's 30 basis point or something like maybe 50 for advice. You as an advisor, you're going to charge me 1%. How does a small independent financial planner undo that conversation? Surely the answer is not, I am better than Schroeder's.
Yeah, so why this is a tough conversation for people to have, to you and I as industry insiders, and for most financial planners, it's a no fucking brainer, right? Like right. They've loaded the investment piece and they've deloaded. It's distribution, right? Those advisors are just selling their shit. That's all they're doing. Okay, a great advisor may well charge a much higher fee than the examples we've used, but then they're going to fight to get a cheaper platform cost, and we know we can buy the investment piece for 15 bips or whatever, the Vanguard type approach. We're going to probably deliver it all for a lot less and focus on where the real value is added. I think that's actually quite an easy conversation to have with the client. Not that easy when we start trying to explain percentages and bips. We could lose people. That's where you have to be careful. But in principle, once the client, an educated client, once they understand that, mate, I think that's a no-brainer. So I don't actually fear that. I just don't like the vertically integrated model. It's not client friendly. I understand it might be a great way to make 100 million, but I think, as advisors, we can build amazing, scaled, great businesses that deliver for the client and just change all those metrics.
I totally agree. And then you have this thing, the middle. So you talked about firms who are, say, for lack of a different metrics, 10 million plus revenue, and they're going on to great things. And then firms who are starting out right from the start and want to get to, a million, 2 million. And then you get all these people in the middle. The question, from say, a million, 2 million, all the way to say 5, 10. And the question to my mind is then, what becomes of this business? These businesses, a typical financial planner is in their 50s. How do we need to start thinking about the future of, this financial planning movement in terms of the business structure, a decade from now?
Yeah, I think firms are approaching it different ways. Let's get real. A lot of those 50-year-old owners of those businesses are just going to sell it to someone. And whether that's an appropriate, I don't mean appropriate, they can sell it to whoever they want. I'm not judging them in any way, but whether that's appropriate for the clients, whether that's the best outcome for the clients, that's another question. Firms like Paradigm Norton clearly have made the decision to do the employee ownership model to try and provide that continuity. Maybe there'll be a lot of, merger and acquisition in that space. A lot of 5 million firms may be joining to become more scalable entities. We'll see how that goes. Merger and acquisition isn't always the path to fun and glory either. So it's tricky, isn't it? And I think it's going to come down to the quality of the management and leadership of these firms. And that means building and developing these second and third generation leaders. And what I'm meeting in the industry, which fills me with huge optimism, is the quality of the younger people who are coming into some of the firms I'm working with. And in the smaller firms, there's a lot of succession planning going on where they realize I don't want to sell to a consolidator. That makes me think if we can get the businesses into the hands of their next generation, they're hungry, ambitious, and got 25, 30 years still to run. They're not going to be looking to sell out 3 years later. They're going to have to crack some of these issues that perhaps we've made some progress on, but perhaps haven't cracked fully. And I'm excited to see what happens.
Yes, I mean, I think you're spot on there. The likes of Paradigm Norton, they've made acquisitions of, I don't know what you're going to call it, they bought out, advisors who are aligned in terms of financial planning and investment ethos, and then who maybe are looking to, is the wrong word, to retire or to exit the business at some point. And they've done a good job, around that. My only thinking is that we need 50 Paradigm Nortons, not, 5 or 10 types of firms in that level that we see today. You talked about this next generation of people who are coming into financial planning, and I'm always very excited, when I see people come into the wider profession, not just financial planning. The one of the ideas that you put across in the paper is, this idea to say, well, give some money, startup capital to these people within financial planning businesses for them to come up with a business model to serve their peers. I was reading that, I'm thinking, this is interesting and dangerous. And the idea is, that Gen X, Gen Y people are the best ones to come up with a business model for themselves. How are you thinking about this as an experiment?
Yeah, so again, we outlined just in the paper, Clayton Christensen's model for this, right? So there's the 4 steps, and you can read those in there. But you got to be trying to take that outside the main business. Okay, you can't do it in-house because it's always going to be a blip on the balance sheet, so it's never going to get the time. I talked about, grabbing a few. If I'm going to use Paradigm Norton as an example. I'm catching up with Barry Horner tonight. I've told him this before. He may or may not think this is a good idea, right? So I'm not trying to tell him how to suck eggs. But he's got some great people in there. Get 3 or 4 of your best and brightest and set them up down the road with a little bit of capital to, get them going. To build this subversive, disruptive business model. It is dangerous. Let's let them rip. Let's let it be dangerous and let's embrace that. Another firm I spoke to who potentially could do that, the owner said to me, Brett, that's going to cost me, $250,000 a year or whatever. And I'm thinking, well, great, ring Barry Horner and do it together. And it's only going to cost you 125. Bring Stephen Jones. Now it's only going to cost you 80,000, and they'll probably wash their face within 18 months. So I don't think it is going to cost a lot to go and run that experiment and to see what happens. But I think, again, because we're the small boutique businesses competing against much bigger, well-funded brands, investment managers, old school, even, sales models are better funded than a lot of us. we might have to do some of that. We've been in an industry that's been open. We've shared our best ideas with each other. Why not go and do something like that jointly and run some experiments? Let's run multiple experiments and let's see what we learn. Let's make it a bit subversive. I'm all for that.
Yeah, it's a very, very tough and difficult one. One of the experiments that I have seen out there is a farm called Ella. You might have come across them. It's essentially Emery Little, Joe Little. Is part of the business, which is actually a family business. And then essentially they set up an initiative. Joe and
Alfie.
And Alfie set up, and I don't know, I haven't followed it in a big way. I should probably get them on the podcast to talk about how that type of initiative has worked out. My sense is that unless you do it the way that you're talking about, which is resource it, give it the money, and again, I guess we can learn from what AJ Bell's doing as well, essentially, creating a mini app or business within their business to disrupt them. I worry that the culture clash between the old and the new is just going to become too much to bear. Startups are run in a very, very different way than traditional financial planning business. It's about trying to prove the model, experimenting, losing God knows a lot of money, versus financial planning business, which is about delivering service, proven and profitable. So no, it would be very, very interesting. I'll be interested to see if anyone takes you up on that challenge.
Yeah, and interestingly, look, I've had emails from people since the launch of the white paper. I've had a couple of phone calls. There's definitely people out there starting to think, some are starting to make some moves who've been thinking about it for quite a long time. So there's definitely moves in the space. There's a lot more of this obviously has gone on in the US. It's I'm thinking they're at least 5 years ahead of where we are. In terms of that innovation piece, there's a lot more, there's a lot of bigger businesses there. The businesses you're wishing for exist in America and they're just ahead of the game. Like, give us another 5 years or so, we may well be doing the same things. It's just a more dynamic, competitive market there. I think there's moves being made for sure here. I can see that.
Good stuff. So let's come back home. It's good to sort of think about the future and all this stuff. So let's suppose I give you £100,000 today to start a new financial planning business. What would it look like?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. It's probably unanswerable, but let's have a go, right? It's a bit of fun. So please. I'm going to go and I'm going to go out and start talking to a bunch of like 30 to 40-year-old people, and I'm going to sit down and listen. I'm going to buy, of my 100 grand, I'm going to spend about 5 grand on lunches for the first 6 months, just talking to people, going, mate, how you feeling? What's on your mind? How are you seeing the world? What do you want to do? How can I help on that journey? That's what I'm going to be looking for. Because I think that generation of people are facing a completely different environment to what I grew up in. I'm 54. It was just different when I was 30 years old. And if I'm going to succeed in that space, I'm going to have to understand that. And so that's the first step. Once I've done that, I think the way I'm looking at it at the moment, and again, I'm speculating here, Abraham, so forgive me if this doesn't play out, but I'm thinking I've just spent 30 years of my life trying to convince clients that the only way to do this is to look at everything, the holistic approach. Okay. I came though, remember, out of an industry where they didn't do any of that. They just sold a thing to a person and then said, yeah, we'll sell them something else 3 years later. There was no holistic whatsoever. So I've spent my whole career thinking that way. I think now as financial planners, we have to disaggregate financial planning and break it back down into these useful component parts and then ask these people, which of these do you need right now? which of these might help you? And that's one way to make this more accessible. Then that can be very cost effective, because I'm not having to do the $2,000 or $3,000 planning job, which is, you know, not going to work in that space. And I think also the other thing I've heard in presentations and research is that generation of people, not only do they buy differently, so we're going to have to be in tune with that, but they want to know what I know. Like, they want to learn, they want help and education. And so I'm going to be heavily focused on free, some paid for, you know, maybe it's subscription, maybe it's hourly rate. In fact, I've got a't just been sent to me by Matthew Jackson, who wrote another great paper that I referenced in my white paper. He's written a book with an hourly rate planner in the US called Mark Berg. The book's called A Matter of Time. It's all about how you run an hourly rate business model. Now, again, I said to Matthew on a call, mate, I've just spent 30 years going, no, never hourly rate, right? I'm not doing that. That's what accountants and lawyers do, and I hate that business model. And I've read the manuscript before this got published, and I'm going, mate, I so get it. This is brilliant, right? And if I'm starting in that market space, hourly rate might be a model. And I'm really going to be approaching this 180 degrees different to the way I'm approaching my at retirement financial planning style business that I've been a fan of for so long.
It's incredible. Thank you for that, Brett. And there is a lot that there's a lot that resonate with me there that I agree with. I know Pete Matthews is trying to do this while keeping his wealth management business, lead with education podcast, and then created a group and all that stuff. I'm guessing here. My sense is, again, you're often torn between the two, right? You still have it's the wrong term, the gravy train of financial planning, tested, proven, generating income, all that stuff, and to try to get this thing off the ground that is advising the next generation is incredibly challenging, but could be massively profitable. When I look at my life, I'm turning 40 next year at some point, I forget. And if I just look at what's happened over the last decade, from that age 30 to 40, there were, for the vast majority of that period, I couldn't afford advice, and I'm not even sure I still can in the sort of the model that we have. Yet there's been not that I haven't bought financial products, obviously, insurance, investment, all those things, but there to think that there isn't a model out there, retainer fee based or whatever, that can meet me at the different point. There are times that the conversation is nothing to do with investment. It's just about envisioning and all that stuff. There are times where it's just aligning the misses to the plan. Of course, insurance, investment, pension, all these things. And to think that even here in the UK, I know many financial planners will say, we do this, we can do this. But I cannot think of a name that I go to, or a website that I go to, that I can click a button and sign up for, a financial planning relationship on a retainer basis, or something like that. And it'll be interesting to see if somebody comes in and takes you up on that idea.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think I can think of like one or two that might be a bit like that. But again, if remember that guy on BBC Question Time who swore he was only in the top 50% of income earners, but he's really in the top 5%. Most of the models I'm seeing are saying, yeah, we're going to work with these people as long as they earn 150 grand a year. Then, I'm going, well, mate, that's not exactly what I've got in mind here. So I think there's a lot more work to be done on that. And as you say, getting that away from the main cash cow business. And Pete Matthews is a great example. I've always joked, I want to be Pete Matthews' manager, right? I just think, I think I could turn that man into a global brand. I just think he's fantastic. So I think I know he's making some moves at the moment. And I think when he gets that core business, squared away, he's got this beautiful brand that can go and talk to the public. And I think that can be anything. I still have high hopes for Pete. I really do.
So do I. He's incredible. He's incredible.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, how you work with firms. You got your UYBP program, Unlock Your Business Potential program for financial planners. Talk a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, so it's Uncover Your Business Potential. It's a 3-year program. I call it like an MBA for financial planners, and it's for people who are a bit hungry, a bit ambitious, or a bit dissatisfied, and looking to learn the skills to manage and grow a great financial planning firm. If you want to stay at 300 grand, this is not for you. If you want to grow on from there and hit $1 million and lay the foundations to be able to go to 2 million and 3 million, then this is the place. And so we're just taking people on a journey where we meet once a quarter. We're doing that over Zoom at the moment. They get access to me in between as much as they want. Literally. So if we have as many calls as we need. So as they're executing on stuff we've taught them on the coaching day, if they hit any brick walls or say, well, how do I apply that to my business? We're just on the end of a phone to make all that work. And what we've found, we've actually let go almost everything else we do. My final consulting clients will be winding up in the next few months. I haven't taken a new consulting client for 5 years. Our online version of the program, we've actually wound up as well, so we can focus 100% on Uncover Your Business Potential taught live with me. We hired an ops manager in April. She came on board and said, what do you do? I said, look, we've got these programs, one delivered online, one live with me. And she said, which one makes the biggest difference? And I said, oh, don't ask me that. It's the live program. And she said, why are we doing this other thing? And I said, mate, I'd say the same thing to my clients. So we just shut it down and we're focused 100% on this. It's the thing that's making the big transformation.
Wow, it's incredible. So the online one was you could sign up and do all the training online on your own?
Yeah, it was like self-study videos. And again, we provided access to me. There was forum, you could email me, you could have coaching calls even. And we just found people didn't engage with it. People didn't take me up on that. I had a call once in a blue moon. And I think clearly people find the self-study thing hard. And I know it's hard. I just thought I thought there might be a market for that, but I just don't think there was. The people that did engage with it, we had a decent membership there. Lots of those people kindly have written to me and said, look, it's really made a difference. But we just thought, this other place is the place where the big stuff is happening, and we're just going to double down on what we think we do best.
It's incredible. And then you're winding down the consultancy sort of side of things as well. What's going on there? Sounds to me like you're doing what you're talking about in that paper.
Yeah, so we haven't, as I said, I haven't engaged with a new consulting client for 5 years. I've had a bunch of people I've been working with throughout that period, and it's just some of them have wound up earlier this year. The others I think will wind up in December or maybe as late as March. But we're just at that place where we've done as much as perhaps Brett Davidson can tell them. I always say consultants have got a use by date, right? You need to get rid of them and get another one who can take you to the next level. But it's just the right time. We didn't fire any of those people. We just wanted that to be a natural. We get to a place where we thought, you know what, this is the time to part and whatever. And so now I'm free to be spending lots of my time reading, researching, talking to people like you, bouncing off other people I know and respect, getting to the US, talking to other consultants, industry leaders. That's where I think the next decade, the next 20 years, which I'm really excited about, that's where all the fun stuff's going to come from, is thinking about what's next, not what we've done.
Good. And the primary source to get that information is the Uncover Your Business Potential program. And if I remember correctly, the firm signs up and as many people in the firm can participate in the program. Or am I wrong?
That's right. We charge per firm, not per delegate. So if there's 2 or 3 business owners, they could come. If you want to bring your practice manager, which you should, they can come. On the days we do selling skills, bring all your advisors. You know, that's how we work. We just think that adds a lot more value. And look, the easiest way to tap into the stuff we're doing is get onto my newsletter. That's where all my latest market intelligence comes out first. The people are on our list. Get onto the website. You can sign up there and you can get to know us a bit. You know, and if you like it, great. If you don't, unsubscribe. Dead simple. But you'll get to know us, know what we're about. I think we add a lot of value there. We provide a lot of free information that's really high value.
No, brilliant stuff, Brett. Thank you very much. You know, and I can tell you these things do make a difference. I was talking to a financial planner last week who said, you know, we started working with, you know, they started the Uncover Your Business Potential program, I think 2 years ago or something. And he said to me, well, we are approaching, you know, that £1 million turnover mark. And Brett said to us, once you've done the first million, these were his words, once you've done the first million, the second million is much easier. So, you know, Brett, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Thank you for the incredible work, you know, that you do in our space and for helping power and push the generation of financial planning businesses forward. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Abraham. It's been a pleasure, and thanks for inviting me on.
I'll be remiss if I don't thank my incredible team who worked very hard to put this program together. Thank you very much, guys. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Timeline App, the retirement planning software, and Betafolio, the high-tech, low-cost flat-fee model portfolio manager. And you, our listeners, thank you for your time. I hope you've had as much fun listening to the program as we have making it. You can find more about the show at retirementals.co.uk, and you can follow me on Twitter. My handle is Abraham on Money. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.